I'm going to be a bit self-indulgent in Andrew's terms by talking about Labor and the Greens this morning. I acknowledge, but before I do open with probably some rather honest but harsh words about our Labor comrades, I do want to acknowledge the three representatives of Labor here whose day-by-day work I have a lot of appreciation and sympathy for, having been in the Labor Party for 22 years, and I really do support and wish them well in developing a 21st century social democratic vision of the good society and the good life. What today I want to speak about is the possibilities of a united front, if I can use such a old-fashioned term, between the Greens and Labor to see off the Abbott Liberals on September the 14th, and I'm at one with Nick on this, that I believe that is a possibility. And if that doesn't work out, then we have formed the basis of some kind of ongoing and hopefully successful resistance to an Abbott government and its inevitable excesses. This is an attempt to construct, if you like, an Abbott-proof fence. But I think we have to start with some honest things on the table about the departing Gillard government. On many very, very important issues, it has continued in the Howard-era policies. And in some, like refugees, it's gone one or two notches worse. It doesn't seem to me that we can ignore this, whether it's expanded aid to the wealthiest private schools, school league tables, the dismantling of TAFE, the Northern Territory intervention, etc., etc. That's a reality, and it's not something that any of us welcomed or feel comfortable with. Larger questions of income and wealth inequalities, they've continued to grow, as Andrew Leigh, a Labor MP, has pointed out. The domination of financial institutions in the economy, the profits of the big four banks have increased by 50% in the last 4 years. That continues. We have this remarkable situation that in this financial year, this government, this Labor government, will collect more from cutting single-parent pensions than it will from the mining tax. There are some advantages like the clean energy package, Denticare, etc., but it is perfectly legitimate to argue, I think, that that is because of the participation of the Greens in an agreement with this government. And when you look at the Tarkine, the Great Barrier Reef, the valley around Gloucester and so on, you can see the environmental negatives of this government as well. I won't go into the booming coal exports and the exporting of emissions 40 to 80 times more than we're supposed to be saving by 2020. On industrial relations, as Tad described it, we've got work choices light, and we've got no right to strike, and we've got lockout provisions of the Fair Work Act that obviously benefit employers and corporations. And even on simple, decent human issues like the defence of Julian Assange, this government has not only failed to support him, but has joined the hunt. I'm still waiting for a Labor figure of some principle to speak out on a basic issue like this. And then we have, and I don't think we should hide from this because it's out there and we know it, we have the corruption of the CSG approval process in Queensland that was on the Four Corners program last Monday, and the grave allegations involving Labor ministers and warlords in New South Wales. Then there's a miasma, as we know, of disappointment surrounding this government, and I don't think we can run away from it. This sense of disappointment is a mass phenomenon. It cannot be just brushed aside as a matter of left-wing intellectuals or impatient or overcritical, hypercritical Greens. It's a disappointment, disappointment may be putting it too lightly. There are signs of an inchoate, baseball bat type anger in much of the electorate out there. Much of it aimed against Julia Gillard herself. Guy Rondell has explained this popular anger in this way, and I think he's correct. For many Australians, life, while prosperous on paper, is squeezed and limited. They are squeezed by absurdly inflated house prices, absurdly high grocery and basic prices, overpriced telecom services, a working day creeping up in length, pitiful parental leave and poorly designed cities. He could have argued a starved, inadequately funded public education system and precarious working conditions, but he didn't. And he goes on, the social advances of the past 30 years have been co-opted to the squeeze. So the entry of women into the workforce has been entirely absorbed by rising house prices. People know their parents' and grandparents' lives were more limited and oppressive than theirs, but they also know that a home could have been bought and maintained on a single wage and that people had more time and space and more ease of life. All these fays, it seems to me, make it impossible to arouse the most progressive sections of the population, and I believe they are a majority, to a positive, enthusiastic defence of the Gillard government. This is not going to happen. What may be possible is a campaign to prevent a worse government. And unlike Tad, I don't underestimate how bad that government can be in abandoning even the minimal action on climate change, weakening and scrapping environmental protections, abolishing rights at work for workers, cutting social spending, making things even worse for refugees, and extending tax breaks to corporations and the rich. Now, this will not only be an attempt to go back to the Howard era, but I think it will be worse in the worsening global economic situation. I haven't got time, obviously, to go into that, but the United States economy, the EU economy, and now the weakening of economic growth in China gives us a much worse economic environment than we've had in the past. But I don't believe a negative scare campaign will be enough. It will require some promises of a better, easier life. It would need to be as hopeful as it is defensive. It will need to offer an alternative. And it seems to me that can only be offered by Labor and the Greens presenting some kind of united front. And I'm serious about this, that seems to me to be an inescapable reality, an inescapable choice that we have to make. That the leadership of the Greens and the leadership of Labor must come to some kind of working agreement of what they agree about, what they will pursue in government after September the 14th. And I think that program can be built around education and giving priority to the public system. It can be around the defence of the climate package and expanding the derisory 5% target and public investment and ownership of renewables. It can be around public enterprise, defending the NBN and going on to high-speed rail and into banking. It can be on industrial relations, improving people's rights at work and the rights of unions. It can be around welfare state advances like the National Disability Insurance Scheme and Denticare, the increase in New Start allowance by $50, I'm just winding up, and the restoration of single parents' pensions. It can be around tax reform. Already work's been done by David Bradbury and others on taxing overseas companies properly, the abolition of fossil fuel subsidies, a genuine mining tax, and so on, and a better life, which means investment not in WestConnex, $15 billion that Anthony's got in mind, but in better public transport, in expanded rights at work for leave and so on, and public housing for more livable cities. So I think that is a real possibility. We will continue as Greens to put a vision for the future, to defend people like the refugees and Julian Assange, to want to stop any expansion of coal mining or CSG fracking and so on, getting out of Afghanistan. But I believe there is a core of things we can agree. So under this scenario, the election would boil down to a coalition versus a coalition. There would be, of course, exchanges of preferences in the Senate and lower house races. It would entail recognition of the end of the two-party system, the end of the imperial pretensions of the Labor Party. That will be difficult for the dinosaurs. That will be difficult for the dinosaurs in the Labor Party, and I'm not confident that the forces of realism and regeneration are strong enough in the Labor ranks to make them face the reality that we cannot defeat Abbott alone. But without this united front, this political cooperation, I doubt that an Abbott victory and all that follows can be prevented. So that's a proposal. Thank you.